European leaders are expected to discuss Donald Trump's latest tariff threats as they gather today in Brussels for a meeting on defense.
There are growing fears of a major global trade war tonight after President Trump announced sweeping tariffs.
France has just done something that even the European Union wasn't expecting. It boldly stood up to the United States in a way that caught the entire world off guard. This shocking move has sent ripples through global trade and politics, leaving many wondering how the U.S. will respond. But what exactly did France do? And why did it take such a drastic step? Stay with us as we break it all down. Before we dive in, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more updates. Tensions between the U.S. and France. To fully understand France's bold decision, we need to examine the growing tensions between the U.S. and Europe over trade policies and economic strategy. The United States has historically been one of Europe's most significant trading partners, with both sides benefiting from decades of economic collaboration, mutual investments, and policy alignments. However, in recent years, the landscape of international trade has shifted dramatically, straining this once stable partnership. Under former U.S. President Donald Trump, a new wave of economic nationalism emerged, leading to aggressive tariff policies aimed at protecting American industries and reducing trade deficits. The Trump administration imposed tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other European exports, arguing that these measures were necessary to defend U.S. economic interests and prevent what it saw as unfair trade practices. This move triggered a chain reaction, sparking retaliatory tariffs from the European Union and escalating tensions between Washington and its European allies. While most European nations opted for a diplomatic approach, hoping to negotiate new trade agreements and avoid further economic confrontation, France decided to take a different route, one that shocked the world. Instead of backing down or relying solely on negotiations, the French government implemented policies that directly challenged U.S. economic influence, signaling a turning point in transatlantic relations. Trump's tariff strategy and the U.S. trade war. When Donald Trump took office, he made it clear that he wanted to put America first in trade deals, prioritizing domestic industries over long-standing international partnerships. His administration argued that foreign trade practices had weakened American manufacturing, leading to job losses and economic stagnation. To counter this, Trump's team imposed sweeping tariffs on steel, aluminum, and other imported goods, claiming that these measures were necessary to restore balance and protect U.S. workers. Trump's economic advisors believed that by pressuring trade partners into accepting tougher terms, the U.S. could gain a long-term advantage in global commerce. However, the reality was far more complex. These tariffs triggered a global response, with multiple countries enacting countermeasures, leading to rising trade tensions and economic uncertainty. The European Union, China, and other major economies responded with retaliatory tariffs, targeting key American exports such as agricultural products, technology, and consumer goods. Among the most affected were European nations, particularly France, whose economy relies heavily on exports in sectors like luxury goods, aerospace, and agriculture. Initially, the European Union attempted a united front, engaging in negotiations while imposing counter tariffs on American products. However, as the trade war escalated, France decided to take matters into its own hands, pursuing a bold and unexpected strategy that set it apart from its European neighbors. France's unexpected counterattack. Instead of waiting for the European Union to take a slow and measured approach, France took matters into its own hands. The French government imposed targeted tariffs on key American exports, specifically those industries that had strong economic and political ties to the White House. These included wine and spirits, a direct response to the U.S. targeting European alcohol imports; luxury goods, high-end fashion and accessories, a key U.S. import from France; aerospace components, hitting Boeing and other American aviation firms in response to past U.S. trade restrictions on Airbus. This move was unprecedented. Typically, EU nations coordinate their trade responses under the European Commission, but France's decision to act alone sent a strong message. It would not wait for Brussels to negotiate on its behalf. The EU's reaction. France's aggressive stance put the European Union in a difficult position, challenging its long-standing approach to international trade disputes. The EU traditionally favors diplomacy, multilateral negotiations, and calculated responses over direct confrontation, striving to present a united front in global affairs. However, with France taking the lead and pushing back against U.S. policies more forcefully than its European counterparts. The EU was forced to react much faster than anticipated, disrupting its usual decision-making process. The response among European leaders was mixed. Some supported France's move, viewing it as a necessary show of strength against U.S. trade aggression and a way to defend European economic interests. They believed that standing firm against protectionist policies would ultimately benefit the EU in future trade negotiations. Others, however, expressed concern that France's unilateral actions could escalate tensions further, potentially leading to a full-scale trade war that would harm not just France, but the entire European economy. Smaller EU nations, in particular, feared they would bear the brunt of economic fallout if relations with the U.S. deteriorated further. Beyond the immediate economic implications, France's actions also raised a broader and more critical question. Could this be the start of an era where individual EU nations break away from the collective response model and act independently on major global issues? If so, what would this mean for the unity of the European Union and its ability to function as a cohesive economic and political bloc in an increasingly fragmented world? Trump's response. Donald Trump, known for his hardline stance on trade, was not one to back down from a challenge. Instead of softening his position, he doubled down, responding with even harsher rhetoric and suggesting that more tariffs could be imposed if France and the EU did not reconsider their actions. He framed his approach as a necessary defense of American industry, arguing that U.S. workers had been taken advantage of for too long. However, this aggressive strategy did not have the desired effect. France's defiance sent a powerful message, inspiring other nations to push back against Washington's trade policies. Countries such as Canada, Mexico, Japan, and South Korea began reassessing their trade strategies, seeing France's resistance as a model for standing up to U.S. economic pressure. The perception that the U.S. was using protectionist policies to bully its allies fueled growing mistrust in Washington's leadership, prompting many nations to seek alternative trade alliances. Trump's trade war, initially intended to force economic concessions from other countries, instead galvanized opposition and reshaped international economic relationships. In response, many nations accelerated their efforts to establish stronger regional trade agreements, reducing their dependence on the U.S. and strengthening partnerships with China, the EU, and emerging economies. What was meant to reinforce American dominance ended up highlighting the limits of U.S. influence in a rapidly evolving global marketplace. A shift in global trade. This conflict isn't just about tariffs. It represents a deeper shift in global economic power and the changing dynamics of international trade. For decades, the U.S. dominated global economic discussions, setting the rules and expecting its allies to follow. But France's bold move signals that some nations are no longer willing to accept Washington's lead without question. Instead, they are asserting their own economic independence, potentially paving the way for a more multipolar world order. One of the most significant consequences of France's decision has been the strengthening of economic ties between Europe and China. As France distances itself from U.S. trade policies, Beijing has seized the opportunity to deepen its economic relationship with the EU. China has long been working to expand its influence in Europe, investing heavily in infrastructure projects, technology partnerships, and favorable trade agreements. This shift is not just about economic benefits. It reflects a strategic realignment that could alter the balance of global power. France's willingness to challenge the U.S. could accelerate this transformation, reshaping global trade alliances in ways Washington may not have anticipated. If other European nations follow France's lead, the long-standing transatlantic economic partnership could weaken, creating new trade blocs that diminish U.S. influence. Whether this marks the beginning of a long-term shift or just a temporary reaction to specific policies remains to be seen. But one thing is clear. The world of global trade is changing, and the U.S. can no longer take its economic dominance for granted. What happens next? With France taking a stand, the future of U.S.-EU trade relations remains highly uncertain. Will this escalate into a full-blown trade war? Will the Biden administration adopt a different approach, or will it continue using tariffs as leverage in trade negotiations? What is clear is that France's bold response has changed the game. It has demonstrated that even close U.S. allies are willing to push back when they feel their economic interests are threatened. As tensions continue to rise, global markets will be closely watching the next moves from Washington, Paris, and Brussels. The world is at a crossroads, and the outcome of this economic standoff could have lasting consequences for international trade and diplomacy. Was France right to challenge the US, or will this move backfire in the long run? Could this be the beginning of a broader global shift away from American economic dominance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more updates on global politics and economics. See you in the next one.